Hey y'all. So I just want to talk real quick. Today has been 7 years since Johnny Cat died. And if you have only been watching me for less than 7 years, then Johnny was my first cat. I got him when I was 22, like before I even started T, that same summer that I had just come out. And I was living in my friend's apartment for a few months, and then I had my first place, and he was my first ever pet. I was so excited to be graduated from college, not living at my parents' house, so I could get a pet. I knew I wanted to get a kitten that summer. My friend and I had spent so long like going to the Humane Society, scoping out the kittens. I remember one time we were there, we saw them bring in these like little tiny kittens, and we were like, oh my gosh, okay, we'll have to come back in like a month when those kittens are old enough to be adopted. And that's exactly what we did. Now, I went into it looking for an orange cat because I wanted an orange cat to match my red hair, right? When we got there, all the orange kittens were taken. And so we're looking at this cage of kittens, and this one kitten climbs all the way up to the top of the, over on top of all of his siblings, all the way to the top cage, reaches both his paws through the cage to touch my arm. That was Johnny. And I looked at Lindsay and I said, I need to see this kitten. And I knew from that very first second that we touched that he was meant to be my cat. And he was definitely like my soulmate cat. Like, he was just there for me for so many hard things. Like, early transition is so like challenging, and there's a lot of ups and downs, and you know, I went through a period of time where I didn't talk to my parents, and it's like that first Christmas I lived alone, I just spent it with my cat. I spent it with Johnny. And if you've been watching my channel all the whole time, you remember he was in the background of like every video. He had a really weird knack for like every time I started to talk out loud on video, he would do something really loud. He could have been silently like dead asleep the whole evening, and as soon as I opened my laptop to talk, he was like, oh hey, I'm gonna like play the jingly ball right now. And he was just such a funny cat. Like, I remember like when I would come home from work, he would like chirp at me, and I'd pick him up and I'd put him on my chest, and I'd sit and I'd pet him, and I'd be like, how was your day? What did you do? I mean, Johnny was my first pet. I never had anything that I cared for like that. And so like, I'd be at work and being like, I wonder what Johnny's doing at home. I wonder how his day is. I wonder what he's up to. Like, this is before pet cameras and stuff. I would have hella had a pet camera for him if that was a thing, like back then. I just loved him so fucking much. I thought about him all the time when I wasn't home. Like, he was my baby. And he was just such a good cat. He was so big. He was 22 pounds. He was big and fat, but not like overweight fat. He was just like a big cat. He definitely had a big belly, but it was just like his little primordial pouch was really swaying. He was a good boy. He lay down on the floor to eat, and he'd like swish his food out of his bowl like a couple pieces at a time. I remember when he first did that, I like fucking Googled, like, why is my cat laying down to eat? Because it was like so bizarre to me that I never had a cat, never seen a cat eat like that. So I was like, is something wrong with him? Like, why is he eating like that? And no, it just said like some cats have a preference for eating like that, I guess. I don't know, but he was weird. I've never had another cat that eats like that besides him. He was just like a goofy cat, and he had the prettiest green eyes. Ever. They were just so pretty. And he'd let me lay my head on his belly when he was purring, and it was just so comforting, like, to just listen to. Whenever I was upset, I would just cry on his belly and listen to him purr, and he would just lick my head. And he was very attentive, and he was kind of an asshole. When he wanted something, he would knock over everything off my desk until I gave him attention. He would rattle my door all through the night to make sure I was still alive in there. So I started leaving my door cracked because I was like, okay, I'm done with him rattling my door. In my first apartment, I had a studio, so he kind of had access to me at all times. So then when I had an apartment with a door, he was like, the fuck? I loved in that apartment I had, the last apartment he ever lived in, I had a little like cat seat for him in the window, and he would like lay there all the time. And if I walked by, I could like wave to him and whatever. And then sometimes if I couldn't see him on the cat bed, if I tapped the window 3 times, he would run from wherever he was in the apartment and run over to the window to say hi to me. It was so cute. And as soon as I got home, he'd jump down from whatever perch he was on, usually way high up. That apartment had like 12-foot tall ceilings, and there was cabinets and stuff probably at like 8 or 9 feet height, like the top of them. And so he was always up there on top of them, and like the cabinet, maybe more like 7 feet. I'm thinking of how much space was on top. There was like a closet that had a big open area on top of it that he would lay on up there too. So I'd come home and he'd be like looking down over the edge at me, but he'd run along and could jump down and come say hi to me. Meow, meow, meow. He was a sweet boy. And yeah, I loved that about him. And he was just a good cat. And I always like wonder, like, why did he have to die? Like, it has never made sense to me. Like, when I first got him, I made a YouTube video, introduced him to my channel, and I said, this is Johnny, we're gonna grow old together. And I wanted that. I was supposed to get like 20 years with this cat. I only got 2. He should have been turning 9 this week. Like, cause he died 2 days before his 2nd birthday. He should have been turning 9 on Wednesday. Instead, he's been dead for almost 5 times as long as he was ever even alive for. It's never made sense to me because I signed up to take care of this animal and love him for his whole life. And I did love him for his whole life, but I thought his whole life was going to be a whole lot longer. I got him at 22 thinking, I can't believe I'm going to have this cat when I'm 42. Like, this cat's going to be around for like a big chunk of my life. And then he wasn't. And it sucked. It honestly sucked the wind right out from under me. Right after Pop-Up died, to lose Johnny too, it was just like an absolute gut punch. I will never forget that morning that he died. He had just slept with me all night. Like I said, been leaving my door cracked. He got up at some point when I was laying there kind of scrolling my phone, whatever. He got up at some point in the morning. I assumed he went out to go eat or like use the litter box or something. And probably half hour or an hour later, my roommate goes, hey Liam, like, Johnny's not responding to me when I talk to him. And I was like, I mean, he's probably just being his like asshole. He sometimes would just ignore you if he wanted to. So I come out of the kitchen thinking, he's probably just being an asshole, you know? And I see him laying on the floor in his typical spot, like right in front of the like stove. And he, you know, he would lay like on his side with his arm, all his legs out, you know? That was one of his spots. And so I was like, oh, he's just sleeping. So I go over to him and I pick up his leg and it's stiff as a board, sticking straight out. And I'm like, oh my God. And then I look at his face and his tongue is sticking out and his eyes were rolled back. And I was like I can't, like the amount of shock that was like washing through my body, because this was not something I ever expected to process. Like, I was thinking one day, how am I ever going to decide to let Johnny go? How can anyone decide when it's time to let their pet go? And then suddenly he's dead on the floor in front of me. And I literally just like scooped him up in my arms, wrapped him in a towel, and I was just petting him and fucking sobbing and saying, no. Like, this is not happening. This is not happening right now. And I just fucking held him and I rocked him and I fucking sobbed. And like, Katrina was getting ready to leave to go out to like lunch with her mom. Her mom and sister are like in the parking lot. She's like, guys, don't come in. Like, something's happened. Like, she stayed with me. I called Lindsay and Michelle and I was like, Johnny's dead. And they came right over and helped me. Like, I don't even know. I just sat on the couch holding Johnny and they like, at that point I was so fucking like distraught. I was like, I'm never having another cat. Like, I can't believe this is happening. Like, they literally collected all of the cat items and like bagged them up for me because I was like, I don't want to keep them. I'm never going to have another cat. Like, this was it. And so I just sat there crying and holding Johnny and they like cleaned up all the cat stuff for me. And I had to go work. So like an hour later, I went to go work with Eric, and I remember we were like digging on the side of this hill, and Eric was like up the hill talking to the client, and I was like down digging, and I was just sobbing and digging. Like, I couldn't stop. I was sitting in his car crying. Like, it was so hard to go and focus on work. And then that night I drove home with Lindsay and a couple other friends of mine who I'm not even friends with anymore. I don't even know why I invited them to come in retrospect, but I drove home to my parents' house and I buried him in their backyard that night. We had taken him to the vet and they were like, we can figure out what happened if you want us to do an autopsy, but it was like $300 and I was like 23 with no money, 24. I was like, I can't afford that. Like, I'll never know what happened to him. Would I love to have known? Yes, but I don't know that it would have changed anything. Like, would it have helped to know that, oh, he had a heart attack, oh, he had a stroke, oh, this thing was wrong, oh, he had too big of a heart, you know, like, who knows? I don't think it would have changed anything for me. So I was like, no, I don't need that. Like, couldn't afford to pay for a cremation, so I was like, I'm just gonna bring him home and I'm gonna bury him at my parents' house, which is what I did. And his grave is marked there. I haven't been to visit in a while. I keep meaning to, but the last few times it's been like still very snowy, so I wouldn't be able to see the grave. But I think next time I go over there, I should be able to see it now that it's not winter anymore. But yeah, I think some years pass and I just don't really think about it at all. Like I think, oh yeah, like I remember Johnny, I miss Johnny. But like something about this year, I don't know what it is. I just kind of was like thinking about it more. Just kind of more thinking like, wow, that was like really fucking hard, and like, you know, just like thinking about the weight of it all and everything. So yeah, some years pass without it really bothering me. This year I definitely felt really sad. I looked through I have a whole Instagram for him still, and I looked through it all this morning and just like was reminiscing on how cute he was. He was a really good looking cat, and I was reminiscing on just his life. And sometimes it feels hard because I feel like I'm like the only person that remembers him. Obviously, like I know my friend Katrina because she lived with me and she was there the day that he died. I know she remembers him, but it does feel a little isolating sometimes because I feel like nobody else like thinks about him anymore besides me. It's on me to do it. And he was my cat, so it makes sense. But yeah, I think I'm gonna wonder always why I got, you know, less time with him than I should have. And he was just such a good cat. It's not the same. Like, I love Charlie. He's a goofy, funny cat. But I would not be as devastated. I will not be as devastated when he dies as I was when Johnny died. There's just something different. It's the same way that, like, I will be destroyed when Ruben dies, and I don't think I will feel as strongly about any other dog after that, because he's my soul dog. You know, it's like the first pet you have, the first dog you have, the first cat you have, that's the one that you're like bonded the most to. And ever since then, like, your heart kind of has a little bit of like a shield over it to keep it from hurting again so much. I just can't love Charlie to the depth that I love Johnny. It's kind of like the first time you fall in love. I feel like it's so raw and open, and then you get your heart broken and you kind of like do it a little differently the next time so it doesn't hurt so much, you know. So yeah, that's all I've got to say about Johnny this year. Well, almost 13 minutes. Thanks for listening if you listen to this all, and rest in peace, Johnny. I miss you.